Hi, I'm Justin McRoberts. I'm host of the At Sea podcast. And for the last going on 20 years, honestly, I have made being at the Jubilee conference a priority of mine. I'm there every year. And part of why I'm there is not just because it's like the favorite of all the jobs I get to do all year as a speaker, as a presenter, but because of the access that being at Jubilee conference grants me to some of the smartest, most well-informed and wisest voices I've ever been around. And this conversation series, the conversation you're about to listen to, is part of a series that actually helps you and I dive deeper into some of those voices. We get to hear presentations from some of the most interesting, like I said, and intelligent people in their field who are informing us not just about the nature of their work, but the nature of the gospel, the nature of the kingdom of Christ as it is manifest and is bursting forth in all of these beautiful areas. The presentations themselves are definitely enough, but one of the things about CCO culture and about Jubilee is there's always a little bit more. And so this is that little bit more that you and I get to dive into. I really enjoyed these conversations, particularly this one. Why don't you check it out? Enjoy. So you live in LA?
I do.
Are you born and raised in LA? Where are you from?
Born in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're kind of from out here-ish.
Yeah, grew up in Jersey.
All
Went
right.
to school in Philly.
What did you study?
Film theory, and with a minor in production.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what sent you to LA?
No.
How'd you get to LA?
I had no desire to move to LA at all.
Okay. And then there you are.
Yeah, zero. So my older brother, he grew up out in LA. He has a different mom.
Okay.
He has friends who I met, had the pleasure of meeting.
Okay.
Along with their parents while I was living in New Jersey when he came out to live with us for a couple of years. And I was like, if people are like that in LA, I don't ever want to go there.
Oh, dang.
So I was always just like, nah, LA's phony, fake, blah, 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 whatever. I was saying all this bad stuff about it. And then I got an opportunity to go out there, and the Lord was basically just like, yo, moving. But it wasn't scary. It was like, oh, man, no, this is what I've been looking for.
Well, like, how did that feel? Like, how did you hear that? Because that's like a discernment piece, right?
That's a whole story. It was much clearer that I did not need to discern anything. It was like a very emotional experience. And I have never experienced anything like it since or before it. And if I feel like if it hadn't been, I don't know if some would say if it hadn't been that apparent, like, you're telling me to move, then I probably would have left multiple times.
Got it. Because it's hard.
It can be a very tough place to live in. Not just like, particularly with community-wise.
Yeah.
That was the main reason on multiple occasions. It's like, man, it's hard to find solid people out here. Now I do. And I actually love being there now, and it's growing on me more and more.
But it takes some work.
Yeah, not unless you really get plugged in with some solid people out the gate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I'm there. That's why I moved there.
How much of your dream, or like, I don't want to call it a dream, but how much of like what you're doing now was like forged and formed once you got there versus like how much of it did you come over with? Because you were studying to some degree. I mean, you're working a little bit adjacent to your major.
It came in different parts. I'd say when I was 8, there was like a seed planted for just enjoying storytelling and entertainment and being on stages and stuff like that. Because I did like some plays in elementary and middle school that were mandatory for everybody. When I was 13 was when I was like, oh man, I don't know what I want to do as a career, but I want whatever it is, I want it to be entertainment focused for the purpose of pointing people to Jesus.
Okay.
That was 13. 18 is when I hopped on social media and finally started taking steps towards it. Because I played basketball all the way through high school and then realized I do not want to play in college. So 18, I actually got on social media and started making moves there. And then I got to college and realized oh wait, maybe all this entertainment stuff has something to do with just my desire to film, for filmmaking. Because I already liked stories, I already liked movies, but I just never considered making anything, and the fact that movie telling is a language in it. Storytelling through movies is a language in itself.
We can just call it movie telling. Storytelling through movie. Let's just call it movie telling.
Yeah, there you go. And then
it's a genre now.
Yeah. By the time I was another 5 years later, 23, I That was right when I moved out to LA. At that point, I had a social media following already. I was going to go to NYU for grad film school. I'd gotten in already, but I was like, wait a minute, the social media thing's already here. I could always go to school later. Let me take a chance with the social media stuff. And I just kept moving forward with that. But I had never felt satisfied with only doing like the comedy and entertainment content. I always wanted to do something deeper. But the comedy stuff is just what took off very like effortlessly.
Yes.
And so, when was it? 3 years ago at this point. Something's like every 5 years for some reason. But I think it was 3 years ago though. That was when the idea was planning to do the web series. I was just like, yo, Lord, how do I do both the gospel thing and the entertainment thing? And that was when this idea to create like an animated web series about the Bible started forming.
Yep. Talk about a little bit some of the things when folks talk about being on social media and like whether creating content. One of the conversations that folks end up having has to do with like comparison and competition. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that makes being on any of the platforms difficult for folks is like the struggle with comparison and competition. Talk about your journey there. Yeah. You have a somewhat unique niche. Like there aren't like a truckload of cats doing exactly what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But what's your journey been like with regards to like comparison specifically and like finding competition or experiencing competition online? What's that been like for you and how you handle that?
I don't know so much about competition online, but definitely comparison.
Yeah, same more.
I mostly would just make content on my own for like throughout the entirety of my time on social media. I wouldn't really collaborate with people too much. It wasn't because I didn't like people, it was just like I just was content with making stuff by myself.
Yeah.
But I would definitely compare, and I was playing the numbers game for a while in my head, like finding affirmation and validation and numbers and likes and followers and all that. And then
you were like checking on the regular?
Yeah. I think it's a very easy thing to do.
Yep.
I think that's something that we do as people when we are not just like filled up enough, or when we just put a bunch of weight on outcome and results.
Yep.
Like something funny that just came to mind is like, example I see is I don't know how much this will tie in. It could be because I'm tired. Let's just go with it.
We'll see. Let's just roll.
So when you go, like when people will go backstage to meet a celebrity, it's like the people who like haven't been around there, like they hold the celebrities in such high regard, and they're like, oh my gosh, this person is doing this thing, they have this following, they have these numbers, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in their presence.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the audio and engineers and sound guys and backstage hands are just like, oh yeah, whatever, and let me just do my thing and focus on what I'm doing. You know? Yep. So what I'm getting at with that is like, when we're not focused on and content with where we're at and what we're doing, then we'll go and like claw to find some level of affirmation and attention from other people. A lot of times people will, I think that's why celebrityism is a thing.
Yes.
Or celebrity, I think that is the noun, yeah. That's why celebrity is a thing, because people will flip out when they meet somebody because they feel affirmed in their own identity by associating with them or getting a level of affirmation or validation from someone else. So how that applies to social media is like, the comparison will come in like, when you see someone else doing something well that you are trying to do, but they're doing it better than you or performing better than you, then you feel less validated by them, and you might hold something against them, or you're like, you're clawing to get to that point. It's just ugly. I have done that. I've felt that before.
Yeah.
The more I've realized, like, it's a cliche, but I'm creating for an audience of one.
Yeah.
And I get to create, not I have to create, and it's not about the numbers that validate me. Like the more I've like grown in that stuff, the more I've just been like, oh, I can chill. Like, I don't need to be scrolling through. I'm rested. I'm full already. I don't need to go find some fast food meal through social media and then feel like crap afterwards.
And there's somebody said for the cats who are doing, who doing audio engineering and they're doing sound and they're doing lights. It's the job for them. Yeah. Like, and they're behind the scenes and they're not getting claps.
And they're content.
And it's the fact that they're just doing the job. Mm-hmm. There's a really wonderful redemption in that if I can get there, if I'm the dude behind the mic, if I can get to the place where it's the job and it's the execution of the job and I'm in love with the job itself, like there's a peace and a contentment that comes from that. Because it's not like the numbers don't matter. They do. They matter differently. Yeah. It's not even like this matters more. The numbers matter less than my allegiance to Jesus or what I'm doing in Christ. They're different metrics entirely. And like this is a system that says this is what makes it valuable. Y'all can have that. Yeah. It's very like, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Yeah. Caesar wants a bunch of numbers. He can have a bunch of numbers. I'm not going to measure myself by those numbers. Right. He wants to measure me that way. That's cool. Yeah. I'm going to keep doing this job because I love the job and I feel met in it. How much of what you're doing now is like has evolved in the last, as platforms have shifted, like how often are you adjusting and like looking up to be like, you got to like make a switch? I mean, the series you did, you haven't done a ton like exactly like that for a while. So like how often are you like reinventing yourself?
Yeah. So I think that's something in the process of right now. I'm not really making social media content at the time. I'm kind of directing and overseeing the creation of social media content for the web series. And for people who are not familiar, what I'm working on right now is an animated web series about the Bible where I'm retelling stories from scripture, but in just a really fun and entertaining way, in like a cartoon format. Yeah. But it's appropriate for kids, but it's not for kids. Yep. It's like, what's a popular cartoon that like a lot of people love? I think maybe like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like that was on Nickelodeon, but so many adults have watched and are in love with that shit. Huge fan. So it's kind of taking that type of tone, but it's biblical stories. The first season's on the Book of Daniel, and that's what I've shifted my focus to, from just doing comedy, social media content to now producing an animated web series. Where like the first episode will be out hopefully by the end of this year. Cool. With that, the work that I'm still doing on social media is like, we want to grow the audience and the following and raise awareness for it. So I've adjusted myself from creating the content to stewarding the platform and leading people in what content to create for the web series. Yep. To help grow the platform. So that's just been a personal adjustment. Yeah. I just started feeling like I was wrestling with this a lot because social media has been my thing. I started in 2013. But at a certain point, like a couple years after I moved to LA, I started feeling like just the shift, like, oh, this isn't quite it. Like, I just didn't feel fulfilled and satisfied and only making the comedy content that had been working. So I tried being more explicit about preaching the gospel, but that didn't feel like quite it either. But I was like wondering, is that just me feeling like ashamed of sharing the gospel, or is that just not my lane? I'm confused. And I came to a point where I was like, Lord, how do I do both of these things? That's when the shift really started to happen, when I gave myself the freedom to realize, like, oh, snap. The Lord never told me to get on social media in the first place. He never told me to be explicit about preaching the gospel in my content, but I have a platform, and he's definitely giving me favor there. Yes. But I have freedom to do with it what I want. So what are the desires there? I love storytelling. Okay, what can I do with that? Oh, wow, that's a dope idea. Let me keep developing this. This is going to bring glory to the Lord. Oh, yeah, that's really fun. I'm enjoying this. Let me keep going with it. That's kind of how it's been for me.
I love that. And you got to that this morning when you're talking about the reference point for you was like, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Yeah. There is and the arts do this. The arts set us up for this a lot. That like the whole "what do you want to do" piece comes in.
People are afraid of that.
And people are afraid of the question.
Christians are afraid of that.
The Christians aren't afraid of that too, but people are afraid to ask the question of like, what do I want to do? It's a lot easier. It's differently terrifying, I think, is the word I want to phrase. It's differently terrifying to say like, there's something I'm supposed to be doing and I got to go find it. Yeah. Versus like, here are my gifts, my talents, and my passions. What do I want to do? Yeah. But what sounds more like a loving God? Does it sound like, hey, there's a job I want you to do, and I haven't given you enough clues to figure that out perfectly. So go, get out there. Yeah. Good luck, kid. Don't blow it.
I think.
Or, hey, I gave you these gifts. I gave you these talents. I've been working on you from behind the scenes for years. I freaking love who you are. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
I'll go with you. And it's that piece that you were pinning this morning.
Right.
Was like, it's not every time, like a calling, not every time is like, it's this day, this time, this job, hyper specific. Sometimes it's like it's rooted in your passions and what you want to be doing.
Right. I think we get, I specifically brought up Christians being scared of that because I think misinterpretations of scripture can lead to these false ideologies about the Lord being super rigid about what we're supposed to do. Like misinterpreting Jesus' story when he told the parable of the talents, right? A talent is specifically an amount of money, but you even slide the metaphor over to meaning like specific skills and talents, right? You have this master who has these people working in his house. He tells them, I'm giving you 5, I'm giving you 2 measures, I'm giving you 1 measure. Go and take those amounts of money and make something out of it, right? He never told them specifically what to do. He trusted them with a certain amount of talent.
Come up with a plan, develop a scheme, and so build a business.
If we were to adapt that into like a story, you could, like the first 2 guys, the 5 and the 2, would be like, okay, I have this much money. What would be wise to do? I think we get so focused on right versus wrong as opposed to wise versus unwise.
That's good,
right?
man.
Like, what would be, like in Philippians 4, what's good, what's loving, what's noble, what's praiseworthy, what's excellent? What can I do that would reflect those characteristics of God's heart with what I have in front of me? And do with the talents probably like, let me go buy a field because then I can plant stuff in it and produce crops on it. Let me get some animals to tend to that then they can produce food and they can produce more of the same animal and blah, blah, blah. Let me go make a deal with this person in the marketplace and invest here. Let me go do this. Oh, actually, that wasn't a good idea. I messed up. But it's all good. There's grace. Let me keep going. Okay, let me do this thing. It was just like, it's very free and creative and flowing. But I think the ending of that parable can be confusing for people because the dude who was like scared and just buried the talent, when the master comes back, he's like, hey, here's what you gave me just as you gave it to me. And the person's interpretation of or judgment of the master was like correct, but only partially. He's like, I knew you to be a good master, reaping where you did not sow. So because of that, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you didn't sow. Because of that, I didn't want to take a risk or do anything wrong.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
He knew his character in part, but he didn't realize like, oh, no, wait, he trusts me. He was thinking like, oh, he'll punish me if I do something wrong. That's not what it was. You could have at least tried. You could have at least put it into the bank and gave me something back. Like that's, so like the Lord loves us enough to trust us with the evidence, the fact that you have gifts and talents is evidence enough that the Lord trusts you with them. Like, continue to submit to him, give your heart to him, and then, like, he will bless the effort that you put forth for his glory. Yeah.
It is a confounding piece, and specifically you wonder, this is a hermeneutics question, like what was the frustration part on the master's part? Is it like, well, where's my money? Like, is this a mob boss?
No.
Or is it like, I really wanted you to trust me, and you could have discovered some things about yourself, and you could have made some beautiful stuff in the world. I wish you would have taken this and done something and you took the risk. And we don't know, some of the other stuff we don't know, like the story, the person who multiplies the talents. Maybe there was. How long was it? Right. We don't. Did he fail first and then try again? Did he lose all but one and then like go back and like did he throw it down on the blackjack table? It's like, I need to get some money back so I can reinvest it. You don't know the story there. But maybe the reward is for like the investment and the risk, and not so much for the result.
And even like with that parable, something I came across, I don't remember the exact reference, but pretty much everything Jesus ever taught on was based in some Old Testament scripture. I remember seeing in the book of Joshua somewhere where the Lord talked about how he gave Israel an inheritance in the promised land, which was a place where they're able to sow, where they're able to reap the benefits of it, but they never sowed into it. And how pleased the Lord was to give them an inheritance, but you all like disobeyed and blah, blah, blah. I don't remember the exact reference, but what that was implying, I think, with the parable of talents could have been echoing potentially just like, I've given you this inheritance and you've squandered it.
Yep.
Like, I've taken you from, like, out of the wilderness, out of bondage, out of slavery, given you things that you didn't work for, trusted you with it, and you just turned aside from it as if, like, nothing happened. Like, what kind of relationship is that?
Yeah.
I think that might have been a little bit of what he was playing into with describing the master's frustration with
That's really good.
Yeah.
Let's land a little bit personally here. Mm-hmm. The pace of the online world is relentless. It's ongoing. Mm-hmm. How do you take care of yourself? How do you keep from getting sucked into? How do you keep from getting sucked into the machinery?
Yeah.
Do you take breaks? Do you have days where you're not on your phone? Like, what's it look like for you to not become like an influencer where like that's your identity?
Right.
It's a thing you're doing, and you're doing online content. How do you keep yourself from getting sucked into? Because that's one of the fears that folks, and rightfully so, folks have about online consumption versus like, and as well as creating content for the web is like, it just sucks you in and becomes everything. What does your practice look like? Like remaining whole, remaining grounded, remaining in Christ. What are you doing?
Yeah, something I just finally was able to. I finally committed to making the decision to do was giving myself a full day of rest. It's almost like
a commandment about that.
Yeah. I hadn't been doing that for a long time. I'm not saying this is an excuse, but the web series team's like pretty big, and we're all in multiple time zones across the country, even people in other countries. And the only time that a lot of us were free to meet was on Saturday mornings. On Sundays, I go to church. I was considering that my rest day, but there are days where I'd serve there, and that's not really always fullness of rest where I can just get up and be.
Yep.
So I finally got kind of aggressive about it, like, yo guys, we're gonna switch around these meetings. When are y'all free during the week so we can make it happen? Because I need my full rest day. I was able to make it work, so just that's one simple rhythm. Just being like, yo, let me step away. An actual
day of rest, step away from work.
Yeah. Let me have a full day to just enjoy creation, to be with the Lord, spend time with friends, or just do nothing, be still, like whatever is life-giving in that sense. So resting deeply, but then like working hard, and in the midst of working hard, taking breaks. Something that I struggled with a lot was feeling like I needed to earn breaks. Sometimes it's like you need to rest in order to be able to work.
Yep.
I think that's kind of how the Lord created everything too. Like, Adam started working really like after the day of rest, right? He was placed in the garden, and then the Lord rested from his work, and then, like that's if that's the model the Lord gives us, then.
And it's the first gift. It's the first gift given after the Egyptian rescue was the day off. That they'd spent these years in slavery, and the first gift given after the Exodus is the Sabbath.
It was a gift. They didn't earn that.
They didn't earn it.
They needed it.
Which makes rest a choice. And that's part of why I'm asking you, is because the demands of the environment you work in are ceaseless. Right. And the machine's always asking. Yeah. And it takes you saying not just no to the machine, but actually yes to wholeness and to rest and to Christ.
Exactly.
Yes. Which is an intentional piece.
That's a big part of it. It's not like submitting to the machine, not playing the game that everybody else is playing, thinking that you need to. Oh my gosh, man, there's so many people who are scrambling around feeling like they have to always keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going in order to produce fruit. Like plants have to rest during the winter. There's it's very natural. It's necessary. If we don't, we'll find ourselves burned out so easily, as I've done so many times. There was one point I was going to bring. I can't remember what it was, but
I would just wrap it up this way. I mean, there is a difference between productivity and fruitfulness. Yeah. Machines can replicate human productivity, but there's something about human fruitfulness that is just fundamentally different, and I think is received differently. And one of the hopes I have, and I know you hope for as well, when it comes to like online content, and is that it doesn't have to look like what the machine is asking for.
Right.
That if we're faithful to if we're faithful to the rhythms of Christ and ourselves and our communities, the algorithm will adjust in the long run, and that fruitfulness in the long run will actually bear out if we remain faithful to that practice. So my hope in it, my hope for you, and I think it's part of what you're getting after, and you touched on it this morning, was like it really becomes about that. It becomes like you are free to do these things. Yeah. It's not this thing that's placed on you by the Spirit of Christ, much less the machines. It's a thing you're free to do. Yeah. You can do, enjoy, and if we do that long term, that shapes the culture around you.
Yeah, and if you find yourself not able to put in work down, if anyone finds themselves not able to put their work down, then that's evidence that they are worshiping that thing or idolizing it, or they're like a slave to it.
Yep.
If you can't rest from something, you're in trouble. Like that's.
Come on.
And again, I've found myself in that place so much, thinking like, oh man, I didn't do enough yet. I heard this quote from somebody recently, like I'm paraphrasing, butchering.
That's right.
But one peril of a lot of men is we'll go to sleep not able to let go of what we didn't get done during the day.
Yep.
And that keeps us from even resting while we're asleep. Like we need to be able to recognize like, okay, my work is done for the day. Maybe I didn't accomplish everything I said I was going to do, but there's tomorrow. That's really giving ourselves rest and grace in every area allows us to be able to work even harder and be even more productive and fruitful in what we do.
That's perfect. Dude, thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. It was
a
great
podcast, man.
Thanks, man.